So, we just had some good news, okay? PPI came in significantly lower than the expectations. Interest rates must be cut. On top of that, you've got this story that Trump is gunning for Powell to get him fired. Now, there's been a lot going through the wire about whether that's something true or not. Is it going to last all the way through to the end of his term? Is it going to be done next year? What is the story? We don't know full. But for crypto, things are looking good, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there's been a little bit of back and forth with regards to this bill, but I'm going to be talking about that very, very shortly. But in today's live stream, we're just going to break down where we are in the marketplace, because there is this theme across the board about, are we going to get the cuts because Trump's going to get rid of Powell? Or is the economy actually showing signs that inflation is coming down, even though it ticked up yesterday? And of course, we still got tariff beefs, and Trump just keeps on throwing those tariffs all over the place. So if you are new, welcome to the live stream, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try and keep this one short and sweet yet again. And let's break down the logic of what's been going on. Here we go. So the problem that we've got right now with the Federal Reserve is a lot of the speakers have been changing their tone. 1 minute they're favoring cuts in July, and then they're saying they're going to cut in September. Now we've got to wait for data. And then we're getting the idea of, all right, tariffs, inflation is going to come into play during the fall. There's a lot of back and forth with regards to it all. Now, excuse me, we've got earnings coming out today, which is very important. We've got effectively Johnson & Johnson have done very well. They've smashed their, not smashed, but they exceeded their earnings per share and revenue. So that's good news. Bank of America and ASML Holdings. Now, ASML Holdings is the big dog when it comes to chips, mainframes, you name it, okay? They decide who can make a graphics card and who can deal with motherboards and data centers and what have you, all right? And they effectively trimmed their growth outlook, which has got investors a little bit concerned, to say the least. I mean, it's just been, just quickly going over into ASML Holdings right now. You can see here that they, as we go into the open, as we head into the close, we saw a little bit of volume coming into it. But as we're going in the pre-markets, you can see that they're down -8%. So that's not really great right now, given that they've trimmed their growth outlook only because of the tariffs. But when we go into the stock market, you can see the Nasdaq's doing relatively well. It's pumping up. Okay, it's making a nice move. And this is what investors are looking for. They're looking to establish the idea of, are we going to get the cuts? Well, let's just go and have a look at that. So you've probably seen here that Powell, Federal Reserve Jerome Powell, is to be fired. And there's lots of things being thrown about with it. And some dude asked Grok, can he be fired? And it says here, the Federal Reserve Chair can be removed by the president only for cause per Section 10 of the Federal Reserve Act. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You heard about this $2.5 billion renovation that they're trying to put onto the Federal Reserve. Now, Elon Musk has been going on about it, saying, look, why are you doing that when we've got a problem with inflation? Why don't you put that money to good use? And this is what I believe Trump's going to try and go in on to get rid of Powell, because ultimately it's up to Powell with regards to what the money is going to get spent on. They are their own entity. They're their own company, formed in 1913. Like, there's nothing stopping them. You can't say anything to them. They're not part of the government. So what they do with the cash is completely up to them. All right. Now, this would be the only cause for it. But if we were to get a change in the chair, Besant was the one that was going to step in. Now we've got another gentleman, Mr. Wash, who's going to be stepping in. But ultimately, the market is pricing in the idea that if we do get a new person in the Federal Reserve, they're going to be going straight for the rate cuts. And the market is looking like it wants to try and price that logic in. Now, back it up with the data that's come out. See here, core PPI came in much lower. They expected an increase, but it actually came in lower. So that's good news. It means that the Fed is going to cut the rates. Well, let's just go and have a look at where we are across the board with stocks. Dollar, I mean, look, dollar's still going up. So hold on a second. Yesterday, the inflation came in higher. It was good news for the dollar because the dollar went up. Now the PPI is coming into play, which means that it's costing businesses less. The people aren't having to pay more. So why on earth is the dollar going back up? Because they're still not in the full belief that the Fed is going to cut the rates. That means there is a lingering problem in the future, and they just want to know where they stand with it. And what do you think that is? Tariffs. That's the problem. Now, rather than focusing on bad news as such, because it's not really bad news, let's get into a bit of what's going on in cryptocurrency. Check this out. You may have seen and heard about this. That is Crypto Week. And Trump's been doing a good job of getting it out there and getting everybody excited about cryptocurrency. So you may have heard about the crypto bill. Now, according to Kyle Dupes, it says here that what really happened behind the scenes. It says Trump kicked off Happy Crypto Week with a big talk about making the US the leader in digital assets. Great endorsement. And it says, but then 210 Democrats plus 13 Republicans blocked all 3 crypto bills. And then he pulled the 11 lawmakers who voted no into the Oval Office and flipped them in one meeting, and Speaker Johnson backed it up by phone. So this is what he says. I'm in the Oval Office with 11 of the 12 congressmen and women necessary to pass the Genius Act, and after a short discussion, they've all agreed to vote tomorrow morning in favor of the rule. So that means at 12:20 p.m. Eastern Standard, there's going to be something happening. Let's assume that if the market does get the result at 12:20 p.m., what's that going to look like for cryptocurrency? Well, let's just go and have a look at Bitcoin and have a look at where we are. Bitcoin is doing very well to hold in this range. I mean, last night in the Asian session, we actually had a very decent session last night when we were talking about the trade setups that I put out. And here is an example of one of them. We projected out everything was going to move up in the Asian session. And we were talking about Solana making a move from here from 162 to make a move to the upside to try and clear out the 166, which is the recovery of the violet vector candle in this range. Okay. And we effectively saw that beautiful move with Solana. And you can see like she just didn't stop with the move to the upside and come straight back into that violet vector candle. The same thing was for Bitcoin as well. So let me just pull that up. Here we go. So this was the range that I was sharing with Bitcoin last night, and it was on the principle of the red candle formation, which is this red vector candle zone right here. And we were trading the idea of Bitcoin making a move to the upside to recover this red vector candle. And we go and have a look at that bad boy, and Bitcoin came through wonderfully, and it's made the move up. But remember, Bitcoin needs a bit more liquidity to move in comparison to the altcoins. Now, there is a lot regarding the altcoins about the idea of altcoin season, which I'm going to get into, but if you want these sort of setups, ladies and gentlemen, pinned to the top of the chat and in the description, there is a discount code for the Platinum membership. It's 20% off, and you've got to use the code all-time high, all capitals, no spaces. Use that code and you get 20% off your first month, and that's going to be valid until the end of this month. So get involved with that if you want to get sort of setups like this. But we do provide a lot more on the membership platform. And the red candle formation that we spoke about last night is part of this strategy over here in the PDF section that you get with the membership. And that is the red vector candle strategy. So there's a whole checklist on that bad boy on how you can utilize it and learn to apply it to your trading. Okay. So all of that is in the description and pinned to the top of the chat. Now, let's just break it all down. So right now, Bitcoin is currently stalling at this, what looks like the psychological ranges. Now, the psychological ranges, if you haven't done so, there's a free course on the Traders Reality website that explains these ranges for you. These ranges take the first high and low that is formed at the start of the crypto week. We know that there is an initial reaction from this point because it pumped up over the weekend, okay? And there you had the Monday session that formed the high of the week. They're back at that spot right now, and there's been a big collection of bids, okay? Now, we saw a lot of liquidations come into play yesterday, and we have a look at it, and you can see that we saw some longs getting hit, and usually what happens is price moves in threes, okay? It's like 3 is the magic number. And you can see it's done 1, 2, 3. But the third hit wasn't as aggressive. Now, there is still a lot of liquidity right here, but equally, people are of the impression that Bitcoin is going to go down, which has now forced a lot of people to start opening shorts. But when you got things like this happening, where there is a lot of optimism coming into play, then, ladies and gentlemen, it will be wild to try and short cryptocurrency right now. Even if you're going to try and get yourself a little bit of movement to the upside, even a 4 or 5 grand move in Bitcoin, even if it were to claim its all-time high again, those guys are really playing with fire if you're trying to run shorts right now on crypto, because there's too much hype and too many opportunities for the retailer to step in and get involved. Well, even with that being said, let's quickly go and have a look at this. 10,900 Bitcoin in 2 days on the ETFs. Retailers and institutions are stepping in and quickly going into the Arkham. Look, BlackRock's at it again. They've been loading up. So 17 hours ago, 300, 300, 300, 293, BlackRock. It's all coming from Coinbase Prime. So it's clear as day that people are getting into the ETF because of the anticipation of the Genius Act. Now, the Genius Act, when you actually think about it, it's all part of Ethereum, okay? So you're pretty much going to be getting stable coins backed by the US treasuries, and it's all going to be done on Ethereum. And according to Crypto Rover, the idea is that Ethereum is now the new Federal Reserve. When you think about it, you're backing it all on Ethereum. So what does that mean? Where do you think Ethereum's going to end up? If Ethereum's too much for you, where do you think they're going to be getting their stable coins from? Circle. This thing, it's already up 3.7% in the pre-markets, trading at $202. We said that $200 was a buy point. This thing, once the Genius Act gets put through and it all comes into play, this company is going to explode, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Something wild would have to happen in cryptocurrency for this company to flop. And it's very unlikely that it's going to be the case. They're going through the stablecoin route. And then, of course, when we get more bills passing, which will enable institutions to actively get involved in holding the crypto rather than going through to the ETF, then, ladies and gentlemen, what more do you want from it? Yes, Bitcoin will move up and it will move down, but it will be on a progressive move to the upside. So everything is being geared and primed for crypto to be moving higher. Just make sure that on the retraces, you buy the dip. Because remember what I said about dollar cost averaging? It's on the premise that things are moving up, okay? That's what you're looking for. You don't want to do dollar cost average when things are on the way down. What do they say? Never add to a losing trade. Never average down. Well, that's what you're doing with dollar cost average when you are averaging down. So where do you buy at this point? Do you buy when it's at the highest point, or do you buy when it's at the lowest point? Doesn't make sense. You're not applying it properly. Dollar cost average. You buy at the lowest point on the premise it's going to go back up. You sell at the highest point. Buy at the lowest, sell at the highest. What you're doing here is you're buying at the lowest, at the highest point, selling at the lowest. Is that what you want to be doing? No. You don't wait for it to go down and continue to go down and keep on buying it. No. The idea is to get in on a move to the upside. And if the macroeconomics are backing the idea that cryptocurrency is going to continue higher, then of course, any pullbacks that you get, take on the dip, buy what you can, but make sure that whatever it is you're buying, you can absorb changes in the marketplace. What change is coming up, ladies and gentlemen? Fed pivot. Now, if we get a stupid rate cut, like 25 basis points, that's not going to do anything to the marketplace. Trump's trying to come in and put a full 300 points. That'll be a shock to the system. That will most definitely encourage investors to pile into the dollar. But hold on, Tino, you said that if the dollar itself, okay, if your yield is lower on the dollar, why would the dollar go up? Because investors will want to get the rates locked in at as high as they can. And if they're going to cut the rates, that means the yields are going to shoot down. So they're going to quickly go into the bonds and get the low risk. And if the yields go down, that means the stock market continues to go up. So then you've got that happy medium of high risk and low risk being applied. Right now, you don't have them applying low risk. I mean, look, the bonds are taking a smack. And this is only because of their expectation of the future of inflation in regards to tariffs. That's where we are with everything, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Quickly going into the order flow of Bitcoin right now, just to look at it from a day trading perspective. Just looking at where we are, we have got quite a few bids to the downside. And that's what I've said this to you before, that you've got to be careful when you're looking at Bitcoin when it's going up, okay? But you've got to pay more attention to when it's coming down, all right? Now, because there's a lot of participants trying to load up on Bitcoin in these areas right here, the idea is that if the optimism in crypto is going to sustain itself, then we really need to see retail coming in. But what we really need to see is we need to see participants offering more Bitcoin to sell. If you look at the difference between the Bitcoin that was being offered to sell before this pump up to the upside, it was so much more concentrated in comparison to what this is. So that could tell you now that there are participants thinking, hold on a second, I'm not really ready to sell the Bitcoin just yet. All right. Let me wait for some news. Let me wait for changes in the bill, or what could trigger the idea of price making a move higher or encourage retail to step in and buy it. So if you don't see the concentration of orders coming into play here, it could suggest that there's not that much interest to sell it, which is a good thing, because naturally, if anyone's retaining the Bitcoin, it's going to increase in value. But then that also means that if there's no volume, there's high volatility. You could get a sweep up and it comes straight back down. So make sure you're managing expectations very, very carefully. Question. Yesterday, you mentioned iceberg orders. How do we know they're connected to the same buyer seller, or did I misunderstand them? Listen, iceberg orders, you will never know who the iceberg is, okay? We make an assumption that what an iceberg order is, just for anybody that is new passing through to the live, is you got $100 million batch right there, okay? That's your iceberg, right? $100 million. You're not going to plant $100 million into the market, so you want to do it in increments. So you split this into 10 $10 million batches, all right? Then what you do? Plant an order, plant an order, plant an order, plant. That's your iceberg at a basic level. Now, who is it? We don't know. But when we look at the actual order flow, we have seen that there are some participants that are playing, like if you go back to last week, there was a couple of orders that were like 33 million, 35 million, 32 million, and it was all inside of a consolidation zone. So when you see that there is a number of orders collected and they're around the same amount, you could make the assumption that it's part of a bigger order, okay? And that's how you identify that there is a potential for an iceberg coming into play. So if there is a cluster of big orders in one area in Bitcoin, the idea is that if they do get those orders filled and price then starts to climb up, you can assume that they're going to try and sell that iceberg in the same way, which will naturally create volatility to the upside because everyone will be seeing that Bitcoin's moving up. People are buying it, but they're also being sold to, okay? So you'll never know who the iceberg is, but you'll know that it's big liquidity in that range. So then when price comes back into that zone, you could assume that that iceberg order could also get triggered again. And then you start seeing the big orders coming in and you just play the same thing over and over again. But you'll never know exactly who it is. It's just a case of the liquidity that is being present in the chart. Okay. Remember the unavoidable global recession. Retail needs an excuse to long the top. Well, look, where is retail? Retail is way, way, way optimistic right now. Okay, look at it. There's the brown line, that's retail. And this is the blue line, which is starting to come up. We've hit the extreme and it's now trading at 0.31. We went into 0.29, which tells us that smart money has effectively sold lots of stock. Okay, we know Warren Buffett has been selling some stock. We had bank shares come out yesterday suggesting that things are okay. Now you've got ASML saying there's a trimmed growth outlook. Maybe that could be the brick wall that the tech market is going to witness. Okay, but tomorrow is the bigger one because it's not just ASML today. You've got the TSM. This is the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. These are the guys. All right. You even focus on the Taiwanese export-import index itself. And if that index is showing a slowdown, then that kind of tells you that there's no demand for these semiconductors. And on top of that, Trump, by the end of this month, wants to start putting tariffs to the big pharma and the semiconductor business. So you can appreciate why the bonds market is staying as it is and it's not going up. And the yields are still high because investors still think that the future is going to be a bit of a problem because Trump keeps coming out with things like, we're going to put a tariff here, we're going to put a tariff there. Keeps on picking industries. Even the Eurozone, they're now coming back with a potent response to Donald Trump's tariff story. And that in itself is going to be a problem when you've got the one main currency that makes up 56% of the dollar dominance. When you're at war with them, not war, but trade war, it's not going to be looking good. You're going to then force investors to be like, you know what, screw your dollar, and they will pile into the euro. Which makes sense as to last week when I said about BlackRock recommending clients to buy European bonds as opposed to US bonds, which means that they might want that on the discount maybe this could all be one big ploy to really screw the bond market and then get it all on the cheap and reset the whole process. What do you think Bitcoin's doing right now? It could be the hedge against inflation. That's the story. The worst times of the best times are roaring 20s. Yeah. What am I saying? Oh, okay. No. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We are not going to do that. Okay. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? What time are we on? Okay, so the market opens in a very short moment. Okay, we are on 20 minutes. So listen, as we go into the open, we don't have any other news. I don't know why I paused there, ladies and gentlemen. My brain just went blank for a split second there. But we do have some speakers coming into play. Speaker Hammock has been talking just a few moments ago, and we got crude oil inventories, Barr speaking, and Williams is going to be speaking later on. But the market is going to be reacting to information regarding ASML holdings because of their trimmed outlook, which probably explains why the NASDAQ is trying to find its feet right now, and it's being very, very choppy in regards to this range. So I would be very cautious as today, 12:20 p.m. Eastern Standard. Yeah, 12:20 p.m. Eastern Standard today, we're going to get information about this bill, okay? So just be careful if you are in leveraged trades, guys. Don't take a risk, like don't gamble, but wait till we know where we are with it, because Bitcoin will probably then shoot up, but it will equally make a recovery down to then continue back up. They're not going to let it go to such high prices before they start buying it. All right? Cool. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed that. Make sure you tune into tonight's video, and the market is now open and NASDAQ is doing its old flavor. All right? Hit the like button on the way out, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll be tuning into you all later on. Peace.